about 35 days, Nigeria, the most populous black nation on earth, with a population of over 200 million, will conduct the biggest and most expensive elections in the entire African continent, with over 90 million registered voters. Now, this will be Nigeria's 7th consecutive general election since its return to the democratic system of government in 1999, heralding 23 years of uninterrupted democracy. This election will cost the nation at least 305 billion naira, according to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the INEC, and it will be conducted amidst critical dynamics like the rising inflation, high unemployment rate, insecurity, growing distrust between the political elites and the masses, you name it. This is a topic for our conversation on today's episode of Fafanua Africa. Now, this is a conversational show that addresses topical issues as they relate to the youth involvement and participation. And in this case, we're talking politics in the West African country. I remain your delectable host on the show. My name is Blessings Basugu. And in the next 1 hour, we will be having an eye-opening and extensive discussion on the forthcoming general elections. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere. This is Fafanua Africa. Will the 2023 presidential election be a defining moment for the Nigerian youth and the future of Nigeria? Obviously, this is a slippery question that deserves attention. The most recent Independent National Electoral Commission voters registration data suggests that youths have a historic role to play in the forthcoming election. Now, they have an incredible demographic advantage and, if they choose to, can decide the outcome of the election in any way they deem favorable to Nigeria. However, the crucial rhetorical question to consider is, will Nigerian youths constructively deploy this demographic power to influence the outcome of the election and redefine the future of Nigeria, or will they sacrifice it on the altar of the immediate convenience of the primordial sensibilities of ethno-religious sentiment, political party affiliation, and economic considerations? The youths are the most powerful voting bloc by number, and ironically, they seem unaware of the power that they have to decide the fate of power strugglers and to reshape the political landscape of this country in the way that they want it to be. Or do they? Having said that, let's meet our guests for today. I have the pleasure of having with me 3 delectable guests. Now, joining us to discuss this are, our first guest is gubernatorial candidate Osun State 2022 in the USA, Dr. Ademola Bayonle. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Ademola.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Oh, and by the way, I was honored to host one of his events here in Nigeria, so I have met him before, and it's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for bringing me up.
My pleasure. All right, we also have National Youth Spokesperson, Tinubu Shetima Campaign Council, Aliyu Audu. Thank you so much, Aliyu, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, Aliyu. All right, my pleasure. And of course, it's not a men's affair because a lovely young lady is also joining us as well, a lawyer and development advocate, Aderonke Ige. Thank you so much, Aderonke, for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And let me be partial. You look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before we begin this conversation, the INEC chairperson, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, was among those who recently spoke at the Chatham House. And we've got that clip. So we'll take a look at that and we'll come back on the back end to talk about it. Please take a look.
IVET has been deployed in the recent CVR. And as I said, we have 93.4 million registered voters, of which 37 million, that's 39.5%, are young people, young Nigerians between the ages of 18 and 34. And then they are closely followed by 33.4 million, or 35.75% middle-aged voters between the ages of 35 and 49. Put together, these two categories constitute 75.39% of registered voters in Nigeria. So actually the 2023 election is the election of the young people. course, they have the numbers. Even the majority of the PVCs collected actually are collected by young people. So out of the 93.4 million, 70.4 million registered voters are between the ages of 18 and 49. Already their PVCs, as I said, are available and are being collected.
All right, I'm sure we all saw that clip, and I'm going to be starting off with Adironke. Now, according to the INEC chairman, Nigeria's voter population is 16.7 million, and this is higher than the current registered population. Isn't this a bit of a challenge? Adironke, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Do I repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I said that according to the INEC chairman, right, the Nigeria's voter population is 16.7 million, and this is higher than the current registered population. So isn't this a bit of a challenge for us in the country?
It absolutely is. And it's not different from what we have been talking about year in, year out, especially in election years, seeing that people who are eligible to even vote, or people who are registered to vote, are usually way higher in number than the number of people that eventually get to vote or even collect their PVC and things like that. So it is not unusual to see voter apathy. It's a thing, it's age long. But then I think the comparative analysis we should actually be making is this election year versus 2007 versus 2011, 2015, 2019, or even 2003 and 1999. So if we do that comparative analysis, that's how we can know for sure whether we are still in trouble of winning more souls, so to speak, or whether there's actually improvement. You should know also that of all the people that were registered, a lot of things must have also happened. Certain people are no longer here with us who are still on that list. So you don't expect those people to have collected their PVC and so on. But then not to trivialize the issue, I would say that it shows that we still have some work to do. As much as we have seen improvement in the eagerness of people to vote in this election year, it's also important that we keep sensitizing, that we keep encouraging our people to go forward and exercise their franchise, because we can't keep going on like this and we can't keep complaining. People have to ensure, beyond registering, that they also collect their PVCs so that they can vote. So yes, it's something to worry about, but comparatively, year in, year out, we can say there's an improvement, but since there's an improvement, it's still something to think and act on.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Adironke, for that. Also, talking about being youthful and participating in politics, Dr. Ademola, you are a young man in your 30s and a young doctor who was one of the youngest to get into the gubernatorial race for the Osun State elections in 2022. May I ask, what inspired you to run for office?
Oh, thank you so much, person. Thanks for having me once again.
My pleasure.
Well, it's a burning desire to see my generation win. And that brings me to actually shedding some light on this. When we say youth participation, I don't think that we should quickly forget the meaning of that. When we are clamoring for youth to participate, what we are saying is that we need fresh ideas. What we are saying is that we want people who can bring their today's reality into governance. We're saying that we have tried other demography and we've seen that it's still the same result. So we need a new hand. We want people who can actually plan for their future. And that is why why
Dr. Ademola, can you hear me? Unfortunately, we have a bit of a network issue, but I'm sure he will be right back to join us very soon. And now, before I throw my next question to Aliyu, I would like for us to hear from some of the youths across Africa on this upcoming elections. We have a vox pop, and we have some youths who are showing their own opinions about the forthcoming election. So I would want for us to look at that clip, and then we'll be right back.
Recently released INEC voter registration population that was released by INEC. young people, youth, from 18 to 34, we form 39% of the population. And from 35 to 49, where I belong, we form 35%. Put together, that's about 75%. Young people don't play football that day. No EPL that day, no other programs that day. Your concentration is just that one day. Give it to the pool, give it to INEC, give it, watch your vote. Vote for somebody you believe can change this nation, can give us a new Nigeria that we want. Somebody said democracy is about voting and it's about majority votes. And it's time that we started exercising the democratic process. Let's start that process now. Nobody's going to do it for us.
I'm actually of the opinion that young people have always been involved in the electoral process, because how do you explain that 65% of the population of a country would not be involved in what determines their life and their safety, their welfare and all of that. So, but what we need to look at is their level of participation, their level of involvement, or how they get involved in all of this, in this process. For example, if you look at the statistics of the voting pattern for 2023, it shows that youths are taking the lead, and especially students. So it is not actually true that they are not involved in the process. It is just the amount or the level of participation that needs to be investigated. Are they participating properly? Are they, do they have their PVCs already with them? And are they getting ready to vote in the election? So what I would say is that election is not it is not sports bets.
Well, those were the opinions of African youths across the continent regarding the forthcoming elections. Before we went to check out the Vox Pop, we had Dr. Ademola, who was trying to explain what inspired him to go into, to vie for power. So I don't know if we still have him to continue from where he stopped.
Hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So, like I was saying, I felt that there was a need to showcase the competence of my generation and actually build a future with desire. When people clamor for change, it's because the present reality is not sufficient to place them in whatever position they want to have today. And if it is not sufficient, we can't continue to repeat it. It's definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. We've tried different people across different demographics, and specifically in the older demographics. And let me put it out there, the youth does not necessarily confer special characteristics of leadership. But what it does is bring in the freshness of ideas, bring in the realities of today, do things differently. Of course, the vigor and the energy. So, of course, that was why I put in my hat to run for the office of governor, the governorship office in Osun State, and I was glad I did.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ademola. That was really inspiring. Also, I would like to ask Aliyu this question. This is my opportunity to bring you in, Aliyu. Now, the INEC had earlier mentioned that the country has never been so ready for an election with ample time before the vote casting. And this came amidst the calls for postponement. If you remember, of the voter cards collection, there was a time when the PVCs were not ready. Different areas of the country were having challenges with the disbursement. And they said that they're not ready to postpone the election because they feel and believe that they are more ready now than they've ever been. Do you think this is true, looking at every other thing, putting every other thing into consideration?
The commission and we understand we Nigerians have a way of holding things until the last minute, but you would agree with me that there was an extension for the continuous voters registration because a lot of people didn't step out on time until it was getting close to the end, then it was extended. For collection, it's been extended again by a week or so. And I think, it's been from the beginning of last year, it's been so up in the air. Everybody's been talking about it. It's a talk topic of discussion in small and big gatherings and offline, online. I mean, I like to agree with him that we are the Nigerians are ready, and we hope the INEC and security institutions, security agency, and other institutions involved in the election planning and implementations are equally ready for a hitch-free, election.
All right, thank you so much for that, Aliyu. And back to you, Aderonke. Now, we see that having been tested with marked success in the off-circle elections in Ekiti State and, of course, Osun State, substantial provisions of the new electoral framework will regulate the conduct of the 2023 showpiece, specifically the substantial deployment of technology and electronic transmission of election results. That's where we talk about the BVAS and, electronic voting. With all of that, looking at the past, looking at the times that they have been used, the BVAS, for example, has been used, and rating the success, how reliable do you think this will be to implement these technological inventions or introductions into the 2023 elections?
They say slowly but surely. I think this is that situation. To be honest with you, I feel sometimes like we can actually double up. I feel like the pace is just too slow. When we use the excuse of how Rome was not built in a day and things like that, it's really motivational, but then sometimes it doesn't challenge us enough to do as much as we can in the circumstance. So I will take 2015 elections, for instance, and 2019. I think we struggled. We really struggled. But we could also say that was the very beginning, especially 2019. That was the introduction per se, wherein we were able to test. And we saw a lot of shortcomings. But what I was also happy about was the fact that I served as an observer in some local government areas, in some states also. But then all the challenges that we were able to collate, we submitted them, not just to INEC, but every other body that was also relevant in ensuring that whatever wasn't working at that point can work now. But one thing I think I'm grateful for is even looking at the Osun and Ekiti elections, the fact that it looks like there was improvement. But then let's remember that those are just 2 states out of 36. And then the elections were also not simultaneous. They were different days, in fact, different months, as a matter of fact. But we're talking about general elections where you are going to be having simultaneous vote casting and so on. But then it's like I said at the beginning, slowly but surely. The only thing is that once we also have alternatives in situations where somebody's fingerprint, for instance, is not being read, because there are issues of sometimes they'll say, maybe your fingerprint is fading off because of the kind of work you do. I remember we were laughing at some farmers and so on. It looks like a joke, but it's really not a joke. So as long as there are alternatives to capture those biometrics, then we will be fine. But then remember that all those things will also keep causing delays. So my charge always is that we should take the lessons from the past and deploy them into ensuring that we make our systems more effective. For me, you can only hope. I'm hoping against hope that everything will be well, because I'm also always careful not to spread the message of pessimism. However, as much as we don't want to be pessimistic, we also want to be really objective. So I don't have, I'm not very certain that there won't be challenges. There will in fact be challenges and shortcomings, knowing also our technological challenges as a country that has not even fully developed into its own when it comes to ICT. So I think we can do so much. But what I will charge INEC to do is find those alternatives that would immediately plug in and key into the needs of people who would have technological challenges. Otherwise, we'll be defranchising people or disenfranchising people on the election day, which shouldn't be. We have 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. But then, yes, some of those states are not going to be having elections. But at the same time, we can't expect the kind of situation we saw in Osun or Ekiti, which were independent. It wasn't general elections to happen in this one. But I'm really hoping that INEC is ready to plug in and provide alternatives where we have those shortcomings.
Thank you so much for that, Adironke. I think one very salient point you made is having alternatives, and that's one shortcoming that we've had as a country for the longest time. A lot of times where these things fail, we don't have a substitute. We don't have any other thing that we can rely on, and hence disenfranchising a lot of people and affecting the vote. So hopefully this time around there are alternatives. And you also talked about the fact that we're a developing country. We shouldn't shy away from that fact. And so we should, like you said, learn from the past and effect these changes to the future. Thank you once again for that point. Now, Dr. Ademola, let's stay on course. We're talking about the youth and their involvement in the politics in Nigeria. Can we say that the youth are enthusiastic enough? I mean, in one of the Vox Pop, one of the people who spoke in the Vox Pop said, it's not like they're not participating. It shows that the youth are taking the lead in the electoral process. But the question is, do they know much about what they're, voting, what they're going to vote for? Do they know the people that can represent their interest, or are they just participating blindly? So do you think that the youths are enthusiastic enough? And beyond the enthusiasm, do you think they know what they're doing?
Thank you so much. Well, I think it's an evolving process. I think our democracy is clearly growing. We're jumping over the hurdles one at a time. I think the reality and the awareness is increasing. There's a heightened sensation for the need to actually change the country. Like one of my colleagues have said, youth are definitely participating. We've seen the demographics historically across the elections. But now, I mean, for the first time in a long time, we see a third force, which is definitely powered by the youth. So I think they are. And also, it's not only by voting, because, I mean, until after the election, we might not be able to know people that voted or the demographic that voted, etc. Even running for offices. I see a lot of people picking up forms for House of Assembly, people picking up forms for House of Representatives, and etc. So I think the awareness is beginning to evolve to a more reasonable and a very interesting level. And that's something that's really great for our democracy. Hopefully, it will not be just participating. It will be choosing the right leader. It will be choosing people not based on religion, not based on ethnicity, not based on any form of characteristics or quality that does not portray good leadership, but definitely one that is there just to make sure that we have the right leadership. It's difficult to get into the mind of people and understand why, but we have seen the clamoring across different regions of Nigeria. We've seen that there's still that component of, I would say maybe bigotry, component of ethnic jingoism, all this kind of stuff. But I mean, we should count our coins and be happy at least about this participation, and hopefully we evolve into a system where people choose leaders based on quality and what they can deliver to us.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ademola, for mentioning that, because I was going to also talk about tribalism, and that's a major problem that we still have on the African continent. And Aliyu, I would like to throw this question at you. Now, there's a video making the rounds on social media. I'm not going to mention the political party or who said it, but a young man was saying that the reason he's going to vote for a particular person is because the person is from his own place. That so even if the other, candidates are doing well that he can see, he still believes that this person that is from his place deserves his vote because they're from the same tribe. And so it's baffling that in 2023, this age and time, we're still talking about tribalism on this side of the world. What do you have to say about that?
Unfortunately, it is not just on this side of the world. I mean, I think the oldest democracy in the world is the United States of America, is that of the United States of America, and well over 250 to about 260 years, over close to 3 centuries now. You would want to recall that the Donald Trump election and his attempted re-election was largely hinged on some sort of racial affiliation. Then I mean, it's global, yes, and while it's a shame that it's still happening. I think as a people, individually, collectively. Then the government, we haven't really done enough, to put an end to that. We all have to take responsibility for that. It's not just the government, it's for every one of us. We haven't done enough post civil war, post-independence, post-civil war. We have not really united, the country in a way that the average young man or young woman out there will see himself or herself first as a Nigerian, and not his, ethnic identity or religious or regional identity. We will all have to, of course, to be led by the government, definitely, we all have to do more in that regard. Isn't just going to come to election. We still have cases of people who occupy public offices, especially at the federal level, and still play some sort of, tribalism in terms of appointment or how they discharge their responsibilities. It's unfortunate, but it happens. As we all disagree, we all will have to put our hands and our heads together to work to end that, because our true strength, our true prosperity lies in our appreciation of our diversity, and the ability for each and every one of us to relate with one another, not on the basis of ethnicity, religion, or region, but basis of content, character, competence, and capacity, which are the only qualities that we need in both the leaders and the followers to move our country to where we want it to be. That's to make it prosperous. If we're going to be a united, prosperous nation that we are supposed to be, then we'll all have to work in that regards to end the tribalism and all of the primordial sentiments that are holding us back.
All right, thank you so much for that, Aliyu. I like that you said that true prosperity lies in the appreciation of our diversity, and that's one thing the youths of the African continent need to learn. Also, Aderonke, I would also like to ask you the question I asked Dr. Ademola, and that is, do you think that the youth are enthusiastic enough when it comes to these forthcoming elections?
Thank you very much. I think there hasn't been, in the last maybe 4 to 5 election years, there hasn't been a time that we have had as much enthusiasm and interest and excitement as we do now. And of course, I think that's for obvious reasons. First of all, I would like to say that participation also is in dimensions. Participation goes beyond just being foot soldiers of certain politicians or town criers or people who are, carrying party labels on their heads and then running up and down the streets. Participation has deeper meanings, and that's why I'm really happy that even right here on this team, we have somebody who was also a Gilbert candidate and who is a young person. That's the doctor here. So the thing is that we can have levels of participation. If you are going to town, creating awareness, sensitizing your peers, or talking to your family and so on about maybe candidates or even electoral processes, encouraging them to go get registered or get their PVCs and so on. That's a level of participation. If you go further to register as a member of a political party because you want to be deeply involved, that's a level of participation. You might also not even be partisan at all, but what you are doing is using your economic resources to support causes that you believe in or candidates that you believe in that can advance our cause as a people. That's participation. And if you then go further to cast your vote, that is participation. No, so this participation is in dimensions. Even engineering political discourse or electoral conversations, championing that, calling your group together to say, can we talk about this and talk about that, is participation. So going back to what I said earlier, this election year, I believe from my standpoint and, somebody who works in development sector and what we have done so far as an organization, just monitoring the system, the enthusiasm is really high. And I think we should not be shocked because all of these also would trace back to events of 2020, especially culminating into this election year. A lot of things happened in our political history, in our social history, wherein young people led movements, young people were angry about specific systemic problems or challenges, and they felt that their needs were not adequately met or even not even met at all. So I think that anger, something that started as anger, first of all, and then a form of depression and frustration, eventually became a fuel for that activism that we see now. So when you go on social media, for instance, where we know we have a large population of young people, or where young people are actually dominated, like their world, you see a lot of conversations going on. You see reorientation, you see mind shaping, in a sense, going on. And then when you go to the streets, and particularly as a development practitioner, I'm really, really excited for this year. Just looking forward, I really hope and pray that all goes well. Because I remember in a non-distant past that we will try to encourage young people, because on the day of election, it's usually a time for young people they have like an open pitch to play, since there's no movements are restricted. So the roads are usually free. So you find goalposts, you find aspiring goalkeepers and footballers just on their streets playing football. But I don't think that is going to happen this year. An average young person is either excited or angry or frustrated or just conscious, because whatever happened 2019, 2020, 2021, all those events, social movements, yes, I see what is playing on the screen right now. NSARS was a movement that, just gingered, let me use that language, a lot of young people to say, you know what, enough is enough. I want to cast my vote. I want to do this. I want to do that. So that conversation has led us to where we are now. And that fire is what we are still seeing, which is making a lot of young people either lead movements for some candidates or speak for some others, or even advocate against some others. So I like the kind of consciousness that is fueling the political conversations that we're having right now. Because remember also that our political history is that is based on, or should I say hinged in a way, and I think it is deliberate, on ageism. We're coming from an era where they will always tell us, oh, wait for your time, you need experience, you need, all of that. And you look at these same people that are telling you need experience, wait for your time. They started off when they were 25, 24, 23. Some of them were head of state at 34, 32, So I'm happy about the consciousness that is now fueling political, not just conversation, but also engagement, wherein young people are now leading movement, leading conversation. So yes, I believe that youth participation right now, even from what we have seen, collection of PVC, 75%, that's a whooping number. Whooping figure. Right. That has not happened before. So I think, yes, this year more than ever, young people are excited and enthusiastic to be part of the process.
Very spot on, Aderonke. Thank you so much. But anyway, it's time for us to go on a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll definitely be taking reactions from social media on this very important discourse. And of course, my guest will still be with me. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
Well, many thanks for staying with us. It's still Fafanua Africa, and we have been talking about Nigeria 2023 elections and youth participation. Now, if anything, it is clear that the youth of Nigeria are intent on no longer being bystanders in the affair of governance and how their country is being run, particularly within the purview of a sustained feeling of an older citizenry or power elite that has been described as a wasted generation. The youth will tell you now that they are no longer the leaders of tomorrow, but of today. Just like Aderonke said before we went on the quick break, it is not time that you tell us our time is not yet our time. Let's wait for our time. We're now taking the time. The time is now, Anyways, that said, I still have my guest with me, gubernatorial candidate Osun State 2022 in the USA, Dr. Ademola Bayonle. I also have National Youth Spokesperson, Tinubu Shetima Campaign Council, Aliyu Audu, and of course, lawyer and development advocate Aderonke Ige. Now, let's continue with the conversation, shall we? Dr. Ademola, from the statistics, we find that the registered voters are 93,469,008. Ineligible voters removed are 53,264. And then our major concern for the purpose of this discourse, the number of youths between 18 to 34 years are over 37 million, which leads me to my question. Now, with these numbers, do you think the youth in Nigeria have the power to change the political narrative in the country?
Well, change is a very contextual and relative word. I mean, on this session, we have a youth who belongs to, we all belong to different parties. Let's just say that. So, what does it actually mean to change? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. Are we saying that we want something different? Are we saying that we just want to participate for participating reason? We have the strength, clearly. There was a time I tweeted and I said, well, if students actually feel that this is a time to get the attention of government, they have the numbers. They have more than 20 million people registered as students. So they can sign a memorandum of understanding with whoever candidates they wish to sign it with and say, promise us that when you get into office, there will not be ASU strike or any type of industrial action that is going to interrupt our education. But yeah, that's the way I would think it should happen. And that's the thing I would probably classify in as change. But like I said, I'm excited about the participation. I'm excited about youth organizing themselves and saying that, yes, we need a different, even face. We need a different voice. But like I said, I'm very careful about that word saying that the numbers is going to give us that change. Because again, this number is stratified among all the 18 candidates. They are youth in every camp of political parties. And of course, they have different strengths. So I'm not very optimistic in that number essentially giving us a different outcome in the election. I'm not sure that this election will essentially lead to that change of whatever situation we're thinking about. But we have the strength. I think we have about 40 days. Like my people will say, the sun up there can still dry clothes. We're hopeful. Maybe the youth themselves can still wake up. Anything can happen. In my experience, 24 hours to election day, I hope the youth themselves can actually look within themselves, think about the issues that affect them, and look into the manifestos of which candidates they can all rally behind. I use that number. We have that number, definitely. One thing I'm happy with about this election cycle is that everything is on the ballot. We have the age on the ballot. We have the experience of the ballot. Nigeria is essentially blessed with good people, with very efficient people, with very intelligent people. So we are not in short of anything in this election. If you say that this is the type of candidate I want, it is on that ballot. We have 18 of them all lined up and waiting for us to cast our vote. So there's no excuse. And I also want to say there's nothing like, oh, I don't want to vote for somebody because he cannot win. It does not make any iota of sense. So I hope that we use our voters card in the right way. Saying that it's probably going to change anything is probably a little bit of stretch or asking for too much, because the pattern I don't think is evolving into that change that we are saying. But I mean, fingers crossed. I believe in Nigeria, as I believe so much in myself. I know we can spin things around in a very quick fashion, and we're hoping this year will be the year that Nigeria eventually gets on that pedestal of progress.
Hope that things turn out good. Now, before we move on, let's take a look at some reactions from social media, from the youths regarding this topic. We'll be right back. Now, Kelvin says, or rather Monisola says, being a Nigerian means being there for Nigeria. And Glory says, I think this is the first time Nigeria State is having high-numbered online participation in the election process. What's happening? I hope we translate this into online involvement in the election results. Don't stop here. Hashtag get your PVC while you can. Then Onyeka Ngene says, the future of Nigeria is in the hands of the youth. Over 65% of Nigeria's population are youths. The youths will decide the 2023 elections, obviously. Well, we also have one more from Kelvin Odans, who says, one of the biggest, apologies, Well, I think we're having a bit of a glitch there. But anyways, those were the reactions from social media regarding the elections, forthcoming elections. Well, let's continue the conversation now. I would like to ask Aderonke this question. Some political aspirants seem to be playing towards the emotions of the youth, putting themselves in the shoes of the youth. So let's not ask if they mean it per se, but do you think that the youth are actually buying this?
Thank you so much. I think this is a very relevant question. And sometimes, being a young person myself, I can see through the charade. You know when somebody is just playing to your emotion, playing, and it's just unfortunate that it's on our continent that you hear sentences like, oh, I know I am, so for instance, I am 92, but believe me, I'm a youth at heart. Because in my heart, I am young and strong and so on. Or you see some gimmicks going on, somebody flying poles and trying to show you I have strength and so on. Please, there's a standard definition of who a young person is or who a youth is. So truth is, being a young person doesn't automatically translate to you being a good administrator or you being good at governance. It's still about equipping yourself, having the passion to elevate your people and your country and so on. But then, this is very germane, what you have raised, the fact that a lot of people pander to that emotion, like, oh, look at me, I'm doing what a young person should be doing. That means I'm one of you. But I'm not sure that an average young person is buying it. And this doesn't even have to do with formal education or anything. Nigerians are intelligent people. You must see things around sometimes, even our children, the things they say, the way we have analytical minds. I am not disputing that there are also, some like little portions of our population that can be carried away with certain things, but to play gimmicks with what a youth or a young person represents, an average young person is not buying it. Remember that we have now, I think the idea of even trying to pander to the youth or play to the emotion of the young person itself, I think is a gain for us. We're not seeing it, but it's a win. The fact that they feel that they need to convince you that, oh, I'm one of you, I'm all of that, is a good thing. It means that now you have shown yourself as being relevant enough to be reckoned with. There was a time that nobody even cared. They would say whether or not you are there or you support will win because we know how we do these things. So the fact that they are doing all of these comedies and just entertaining us, I am happy that the average young Nigerian, remember I said average young Nigerian, is not buying it. And that's the reason that these conversations that are also happening, either online or offline, they are also important for young people to charge one another to say, did you see that comedy of yesterday? I hope you didn't buy it. That kind of thing. So conscientizing one another, I think is a good thing. I, as a person, I'm not buying it. I don't know about Aliyu, I don't know about Dr. Bayonle, but I am not buying it. And I don't think an average Nigerian young person is buying it.
I mean, I really would have loved to ask Dr. Bayonle and Aliyu if they were buying it, but because of our time, we won't be able to buy that question. But anyways, my final question will go to Aliyu. Now, one issue we face across Africa is that citizens, especially the youth, lack the understanding of what it means to be citizens. And by that, I mean knowing their rights, knowing what the Constitution says, and of course, knowing what they deserve. And that also brings the issue of whether they buy these things or not. I mean, you have to know what is at stake before you understand what they're promising you. If you understand the Constitution, you will know that this one is not adding up. I don't know if you get what I mean. So doesn't this pose a challenge, especially in politics? Because then they are at the risk of swallowing every word, line, hook, and sinker without filtering.
Yes, I mean, that's a very, very important will I say question? Not a question. Yeah, it's so important, especially right now that there seems to be very serious improvement in interest shown by young people in politics, in governance. And I mean, it starts with interest. We're not there yet, yes, but we should celebrate the fact that there is interest. Then there is the knowledge, then the know-how. Getting involved isn't necessarily, like someone said about joining a political party. We need to understand how politics works. If we are ever going to make changes, if we're ever going to bring our innovative skills, if we're going to bring our tenacity, if we're going to bring all of the newness that is associated with the young persons, which the average Nigerian young person has displayed in various sectors of human endeavors, locally and internationally. If we are going to apply that in how we are managed, how we are governed, or how the politics work here, we are going to have to learn and understand history of political happenings in our country since independence, with the military break and the return to democracy in the attempted return in 92 and eventual return in 99. We need to, as young people, we need to study individual characters, the major players, every other player, what they did while they were in positions, how they have, I mean, we have people who have fought for democracy to happen. You know, whether we like it or not, as imperfect as democracy is, it's still the best means of selecting our leaders. So we must appreciate those who have fought for us to have democracy, and we must appreciate those who have given, you know, they are all, they might not have done a whole lot, which is why I don't join the council mentality of saying, oh, the old guards have failed us. No, I mean, I am a Nigerian. I've traveled around the world. You know, I have seen people from other African countries, and I will not trade being Nigerian for any other country any day. And I can't say this, all of this just happened about, you know, just over 40 years ago when I came on earth or something. No, there is history of characters that have shown that they are what it is to be a Nigerian globally. You know, we have the Tafawa Balewas, the Ahmadu Bellos, the Awolowas, the Nnamdi Azikiwe, who held their own globally. Right. You know, we can go back to history and look at the video of Tafawa Balewa addressing U.S. Congress. So all of this history and what government, you're right, what is expected of governance? What is government? What are their responsibilities? How does a government work? Right. What are our responsibilities? What are our rules? These are the things that we need to understand. It is equally part of the failures of the government. I mean, with governments, I mean government with S, you know, government since 92 till date or beyond that, they have not enlightened, they have not educated citizens enough. I think one of the major challenges we have. All right,
very well said, Ali. Apologies, I have to interrupt you there because of our time, but I would really like to say a big thank you to my guests. I just realized all your names begin with A, so I'll call you the Power A's. I'm talking about Dr. Ademola Bayanle. Of course, we have Aliyu Audu and Aderonke Ige. Thank you so much for gracing my set and talking about this very, very important discourse. Really do appreciate.
Thank you very much for being a fantastic anchor.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. My pleasure. Now, we have some short but profound expressions by African icons that can guide the youth of Africa on their journey to active participation in politics. Do take a look. Well, the 2023 elections in Nigeria, according to analysts, will be the largest in Africa and, of course, shape the demographic trajectory of not only Nigeria, but the entire region. One of the trends that the world will be watching when Nigerians head to the polls is the turnout of Nigeria's huge youth population, who made up over 80% of newly registered voters this year, according to Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission, the INEC. We look forward to seeing how that pans out. It's been an amazing one-hour packed program, and thanks to our guests and, of course, our viewer for that. Join us again next week for another fantastic episode. And in the words of Aderonke Ige, I remain your fantastic anchor. Blessings for Sugar. See you again next week.